Conversations from the Zoom Room.
Hey everybody, it's Bill. How's it going? Well, last weekend I got a call from Dave Chute. Dave said to me, Bill, I feel like maybe I left people hanging with my last conversations from the Zoom Room. Maybe I was just defining the problem, but not really offering a solution. So I said, Dave, why don't we get on another Zoom and let's make it happen. So I'm really excited to present this new edition of Conversations from the Zoom Room, featuring Dave Chute with his 5-point plan for pivoting. Enjoy. We had an interesting discussion yesterday. You called,
we did.
And you were talking about some new sort of planning methodology that you've come up with that sounded super intriguing. So tell us more.
Well, after we talked, I felt, I'm not sure what the right word is. It's not helpful to have someone like myself explain problems. I guess it's useful because you're at least aware of an issue, but it's like, so now what do I do, right?
Yeah,
Thank you. I now have the coronavirus. Now what do I do, right? And I realized what you really need is to like, well, okay, how do I constructively get my way from survival to thriving, right? Mm-hmm. From survive to thrive.
Yeah.
And because of a couple of my not-for-profits and because of ThinOptics, and really having gone through the same issue, you get hit by this massive, 80% drop in sales, yeah. And it's like it's an existentialist crisis. Yeah. In all cases, you have to really think through, okay, well, can I survive, right? How do I think about this? Yeah. But then it's like, okay, I got to do more than just that, because what I really need to do is get to the thrive part, right? So the good news is this is going to end. There's going to be a vaccine. There's going to be antivirals. Demand is going to come back. I'm not sure if it's a V or a longer L. It's probably a little bit longer, but it's going to come back. So what you really want to do is like, let me hunker down. I'm in my sailboat. The big old typhoon is coming. I'm hunkering down. It's going to sweep over me, and then I'm going to come out, and then start rigging the sails and get better. So, from a business perspective, what does that mean, right? So, I realized I'd been in a board meeting on Saturday, and I kind of laid out what we had done in one of the not-for-profits, and you realize it's really. It's a process, and that process can be adapted to an ECP, right? Mm-hmm. So the first one is when this happens and it's such an amazing, 90% drop in sales, huge, right? You just got to survive. Mm-hmm. And that's just, cash is king. Get as much cash as you can, hang on to the cash as best you can, eliminate unnecessary expenses, furlough, whatever, just, conserve your cash. And then, figure out how long can you exist with what you have and what you can borrow and what you can get, right? So but that's just a phase. All that does is just make sure you live to fight another day. Step two is you have to start, okay, now you stabilize your business, which is, okay, the worst is over, the storm has passed, there's some broken stuff on the ship. My sales are not down 80, but maybe they're down 30 or 40. My expenses are higher than they really than I can afford, given the sales I'm facing on a daily basis. How do I sustain myself long enough to get to when the sun's going to come out, right? And so that's a little bit less of the survival mentality, and a little bit more of like, okay, if my sales are lower on a daily basis, how do I get my operating expenses in line with the daily sales? Mm-hmm. How do I communicate differently? How do I manage my protocols? How do I manage my waiting room? How do I get PPE? How do I do distance for fractions? Whatever, just so I can live long enough to just have some breathing room. Yeah. So, stabilizing is sort of, key. And I think as ECPs are starting up, now the next phase is going to be stabilizing and making sure that they can live on a lower sales per day basis than they're used to. The third one, and it's a pivot from defensive to offensive, and a pivot from hunker down, survive to innovation, is really lay the foundations for growth. That's where you start getting innovative. Like, okay, if people are going to start doing more stuff online, can I do telehealth? Can I do consultations? Can I do, remote refraction? Can I do online sales of contact lenses? Can I do more email and communication? Can I do online dispensing and selection of frames? So instead of having to just clean 60 frames, I can clean 5. So I pick 5 that I want to see at home, and then there they are, right? So the lay the foundations for growth bit is really just sort of innovating and testing and learning and reading a lot about what are people doing and what are the best practices. And if half of my demand or a third of my demand went away and it's not coming back or I can't supply it, how do I grow it in another area?
Sure.
New products, new customers, whatever. And that's to me the exciting piece, and that's the hope piece, because we don't want to just survive, we want to thrive, right? So that laying the foundation for growth is absolutely key. The fourth piece is you're going to test a bunch of stuff, and like in all these businesses, you don't know what's going to work. Like you think, I'll say for myself, there are times I think, oh man, that's just a great idea, that's definitely going to work. Doesn't.
Yeah.
Something else, I don't know, I'll give it a try. Incredibly successful in my for-profit stuff and my not-for-profit stuff. There have been these massive pivots away from one thing over here, the way we used to do business, to the new thing over here, because people are doing more stuff online or whatever. And then the final bit is once, the thriving piece, once we're through all this, and we'll get all through this, and it's 12 months or 18 months or whatever it's going to be, then you've evolved into being a new business and you've got your niche and you do things well, then you just double down and doing the good stuff, right? Which you're really, really good at. Just get better at it. Just do it every day. But I think thinking about taking the business through the 5 phases to get away from survive, which is very fight or flight survival mode, to stabilizing, to laying foundation, to scaling, to ultimately getting back to a much better world, and that's where hope is. That's a process.
Yeah. Add on to what Bill said, I think what you described was a great process, continuous improvement, right? You find, make small incremental changes, see what works, whatever doesn't work, throw it out, try something new. So, we know that a lot of ODs, optometrists, they're kind of set in their ways. They've always done things a certain way. So there's some, mindset change that's also required.
Totally.
Right? And so the ones that are open to this idea of making small incremental changes, what are the top 2 to 3, would you say, things that they could try right now?
I think each phase has different skill sets involved, right? Like survival is you just got to make decisions. They may not be perfect, but you just got to borrow a bunch of PPP money, furlough a bunch of staff until you figure out what's going on, try to send product back and stretch your payables as best you can. Then you start peeling back the onion, which is okay, how do I minimize my cash burn, or how do I raise my sales, how do I lower my operating expenses, how do I maximize my cash on hand to get through this mess.
Sure.
And first you got to understand you got a problem.
Yeah.
And is it a sales problem, a cost problem, a unit problem, an average selling price problem, whatever. Once you understand that, so then what are the root causes? And I think having, and you guys know this, having empathy for the customer, don't look at yourself as, me, I went to optometry school, I went to business school, what does my patient see when they walk in the door? What does my consumer see when they want to buy something? How hard is this, right? How do I make it easier, less friction? And that's the redefining who you are. And it requires a very open mind and a very candid assessment of the business, and then some creativity and some boldness to pivot to it. And then you try it, because not everything's going to work. And then when it works, you go do the heck out of it.
So I love everything you said there, Dave. The only thing I would like to add is, you've got a 5-point plan. I think there's one more point. The 6th point is even when you have pivoted, you can't stop there either.
Yes.
Right? Because the next thing is going to come that you haven't anticipated. And after that, the next thing is going to come. So it's always a game of, just challenging yourself and pivoting all the time.
I totally agree. Yeah, and I think I'm going to steal the 6th point and do it. But you're totally right. It's a race, right? Everybody's racing to try to offer the consumer a better deal.
Yeah.
And if they're
Yeah.
running faster than you, you're falling behind, even if you're moving.
So which point are you on right now with your businesses?
It depends on the business and the not-for-profit, but definitely through Survive, definitely through Stabilize, kind of in parallel, but then following like, okay, let's now start going into entirely new areas, with entirely new programs, selling different products, and then to see if it works, and then what do I do with that?
So name one recipe that you have attempted and or mastered during this lockdown.
Cheerios.
Very good. It took a lockdown for you to master Cheerios.
No. The level of incompetence I have exhibited in the kitchen is almost epic. If I'm able to toast something successfully and butter it and get some cherry jam on it, I'm feeling really, really proud. You know.
One more question. Okay. So, what is your idea of happiness?
I'll give you the equation.
Okay. I've been looking for that all my life.
So, thought experiments.
Yeah.
And this is a geek out moment, I admit, but so much of the physical world is explained by Einstein's E equals mc squared. Energy is mass times the speed of light squared, right? And there's conservation, and it just explains so much, right? But it's so elegant, and so much gets explained by that. I went through a period where I was reading about physics. Not that I understand any of it, but I thought it was pretty fascinating. So I said, I wonder if there's a version of that for just human experience. What's the most elegant mathematical function that could explain, right? So I decided that, and I think this is true, that it's happiness is reality minus expectation.
That's a good one. Reality minus expectation.
Well, here's to keeping on the positive side and not letting your expectations guide your whole.
It's too carried away.
Yeah, exactly.
Conversations from the Zoom Room.